The village of Marrow Creek sat at the edge of a dark forest, far from the palace of Blackthorn Hollow. It was a quiet place, filled with simple homes and hard-working people. Among them lived a young woman named Elena Marsh. She was known for her gentle hands and her gift for healing. People came from nearby towns to see her when doctors could not help them. She never asked for much in return. A loaf of bread, a bundle of herbs, or simply a thank you was enough for her. Elena lived alone, in a small wooden house near the tree line. Her parents had passed away years before, leaving her with nothing but their old cottage and a garden full of healing plants. She spent her days tending to the sick and her nights reading old books about medicine and nature. She had heard stories about the forest, about strange creatures that lived within it, but she never believed them. To her, the forest was simply a quiet, peaceful place. One cold night, everything changed. Elena heard a low, painful sound coming from behind her house. She grabbed a lantern and stepped outside, her heart pounding. There, lying in the grass, was a huge gray wolf. Its side was torn open, blood soaking into the dirt. Most people would have run. Elena did not. She saw a creature in pain, and her instinct to heal took over instantly. She knelt beside the wolf slowly, speaking in a soft, calm voice. "It's all right. I won't hurt you. Let me help." The wolf's eyes, a deep and striking amber color, watched her carefully. For a moment, she thought it might attack her. Instead, it went still, as if it understood her words. Elena worked through the night, cleaning the wound and wrapping it with cloth. By morning, the wolf was gone, leaving only a trail of paw prints leading back into the forest. She did not think much of it at first. But 3 nights later the wolf returned, this time with a smaller wound on its leg. Elena treated it again, and again it left before sunrise. This became a pattern. Every few nights, the gray wolf would appear at her door, sometimes injured, sometimes simply resting nearby, as if it enjoyed her company. Elena began to feel a strange connection to the creature. She would talk to it while she worked, telling it about her day, her worries, and her quiet dreams of one day traveling beyond Marrow Creek. What Elena did not know was that this wolf was no ordinary animal. He was Kalen Voss, the Alpha King of Blackthorn Hollow, the most powerful and feared ruler among all the wolf kingdoms. Kalen ruled with strength and silence. He rarely spoke unless necessary, and his enemies trembled at the mention of his name. But even kings carried burdens. Kalen often slipped away from his palace at night, needing distance from the constant demands of his throne. During one of his solitary runs through the forest, he had been ambushed by rebels who opposed his rule. Wounded and alone, he had wandered until he found Elena's small house glowing with lantern light. At first, he only meant to rest nearby, until his wounds healed enough to return home. But something about the healer's gentle hands and kind words made him stay longer than he intended. He found himself drawn back to her cottage again and again, not because he needed healing, but because he wanted to hear her voice. In his kingdom, everyone feared him. No one dared speak to him so freely, so warmly. Elena had no idea who he truly was, and that made her honesty feel like a rare gift. Months passed this way. Elena never suspected that the wolf she cared for was the king of Blackthorn Hollow. She only knew that she had grown attached to the quiet creature who visited her under the moonlight. Then came the night of the Blood Moon Festival. The festival was the most important night in Blackthorn Hollow, a time when the kingdom celebrated the strength of its people and honored the moon that gave them their power. Warriors from every corner of the land gathered at the palace, and the king himself was expected to appear before his people in his human form, something he rarely did in public. That same night, soldiers patrolling the border found strands of wolf fur on Elena's clothing, left behind from her many nights spent treating the gray wolf. They did not know the truth. They only saw a human woman carrying the scent of their king, and in their eyes, that made her dangerous. Without warning, she was seized and dragged toward the palace, accused of being a spy sent to harm the crown. Elena was terrified. She had never been inside the palace, had never even seen the king in his human form. She was pushed through the grand hall, past hundreds of watching eyes, until she was forced to kneel before the throne. When she finally lifted her head to look at the king, her breath caught in her throat. His face was unfamiliar, strong and commanding, framed by dark hair and sharp features that matched the fierce reputation whispered about him. But his eyes, that deep amber color, were unmistakable. She had stared into those same eyes countless nights, cleaning wounds and whispering comfort. In that single moment, Elena understood the truth. The wolf she had cared for, the quiet visitor who came to her under the stars, was the Alpha King himself. Without thinking, without even realizing the danger of her own actions, she whispered his name. Kaelin. The word was soft, barely more than a breath, but it echoed through the hall as if she had shouted it. Every warrior, every advisor, every guest at the festival froze. Weapons that had been raised in suspicion suddenly lowered. Whispers spread like fire through dry grass. In the ancient laws of the Wolf Kingdoms, a king's true name was sacred, known only to his closest bloodline. No outsider had spoken it aloud in over 300 years. To do so uninvited was either an act of treason worthy of death, or proof of something far more powerful, a bond between mates that could not be denied. Kaelin rose slowly from his throne. The hall remained utterly silent, no one daring to move or speak. He walked down the steps toward Elena, his expression unreadable, though his eyes never left hers. When he reached her, he did something no one in the kingdom had ever witnessed. The Alpha King knelt before a human woman. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Advisors exchanged panicked glances. This was unheard of, impossible even. Kings did not kneel. Kings certainly did not kneel before humans. "You knew my name," Kaelin said quietly, his voice steady, despite the shock rippling around them. "How?" Elena's hands trembled, but she found her voice. "The wolf who came to my door every night, the one I healed. It was you, wasn't it?" Kaelin nodded once. "From the moment they brought you into this hall, I recognized your scent. You healed me for months without ever asking who I was. You never once asked for anything in return." The hall stirred with confusion and disbelief. An elderly advisor stepped forward, his voice sharp with concern. "My king, this changes nothing. She is human. The old laws forbid a bond between our kind and hers." Kaelin stood and turned to face his court, his voice carrying the weight of authority once more. "The bond is not something I chose. It is something that exists, whether the laws accept it or not. She spoke my name, because something within her recognized something within me. That is not treason, that is truth. Not everyone in the kingdom was willing to accept this truth so easily. Among the crowd stood Lord Draven, the king's uncle, and a powerful figure within the court. Draven had long believed that he, not Kaelin, deserved to rule Blackthorn Hollow. He saw this moment as an opportunity to weaken the king's position in the eyes of the people. "This is trickery," Draven announced, stepping forward with confidence. "A human cannot bond with an Alpha King. She has learned his name through spies or lies, nothing more. If my nephew wishes to embarrass himself before our people, that is his choice, but I will not allow a false claim to threaten the stability of our kingdom." Murmurs of agreement rose from some corners of the hall. Doubt was a powerful weapon, and Draven wielded it skillfully. Kaelin's authority, though respected, was not beyond question, especially when it came to matters as sacred as mate bonds. Kaelin's expression hardened, but he did not raise his voice. Instead, he addressed the entire hall calmly. "Then let the old ways decide. I will submit to the trial of the moon. If the bond between us is false, as my uncle claims, then the trial will reveal it, and I will accept whatever judgment follows." The trial of the moon was an ancient ritual, rarely performed, reserved only for moments when a mate bond was disputed. It was said that only two souls truly connected by fate could survive it. Elena did not fully understand what she was agreeing to, but she trusted the calm certainty in Kaelin's eyes, and she nodded. The trial was set to take place at midnight, beneath the full glow of the blood moon, in the sacred grove behind the palace. Word spread quickly through the kingdom, and by the time night fell, nearly every citizen of Blackthorn Hollow had gathered to witness the event. Elena stood at the center of the grove, her heart racing, while Kaelin stood beside her, his presence steady and reassuring, despite the uncertainty surrounding them. The elder who oversaw the ritual explained the process in a solemn voice. Both Elena and Kaelin would step into a circle of ancient stones, The moonlight above would judge the truth of their bond. If real, the light would surround them both in a shared glow, and they would be marked as true mates before the kingdom. If false, the light would reject them, and the consequences would fall upon whoever had spoken the sacred name without cause. Elena's hands were shaking as she stepped into the circle. Kaelin reached out and gently took her hand, his touch calming her nerves instantly. "Whatever happens," he said quietly, "I do not regret a single night I spent at your door." Elena managed a small smile despite her fear. "Neither do I." The moon rose higher, its light growing brighter as it reached its peak. The crowd held its breath. Slowly, a soft glow began to form around Elena and Kaelin, faint at first, then growing stronger, until it wrapped around them both like a warm embrace. Gasps of astonishment spread through the grove. The light was unmistakable, undeniable proof recognized by every wolf present. The bond was real. Draven's face went pale as the crowd turned to him, no longer swayed by his earlier words. His attempt to weaken the king's rule had failed, and now the entire kingdom witnessed the truth he had tried to deny. Realizing his plan had crumbled, he quietly stepped back into the shadows of the crowd, his influence over the court diminished in that single moment. The elder who led the ritual raised his hands and declared the bond true before all who had gathered. Elena Marsh, a simple healer from Marrow Creek, was recognized as the rightful Luna of Blackthorn Hollow, chosen not by politics or power, but by fate itself. That night, something remarkable happened across the kingdom. The usual tension and fear that surrounded Blackthorn Hollow seemed to soften. Citizens who had once only feared their king now watched him with a new kind of respect, seeing him kneel, wait, and trust in something greater than his own authority. Elena's kindness, once hidden in a small forest cottage, was now known throughout the land, and stories of the healer who tamed the Alpha King's heart spread quickly among the people. In the days that followed, Elena moved into the palace, though she never lost the humility that had defined her in Marrow Creek. She continued to care for the sick and injured, now with the resources of an entire kingdom behind her healing hands. Kaelin, in turn, found that ruling no longer felt like a lonely burden. For the first time, he had someone beside him who understood him not as a king, but simply as Kaelin. The kingdom of Blackthorn Hollow, once known only for its silence born of fear, learned a new kind of quiet that night, one built on respect, loyalty, and love. And though many years would pass, the people never forgot the night a whispered name changed everything. The night their king knelt before a human healer, and the night an ancient kingdom finally understood that true strength was not found in silence born of fear, but in the courage to trust, to kneel, and to love without condition.